Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today I'm going to be showing you Levolution and how to trigger it in the 9 new Hardline maps. Starting off, we have Hollywood Heights. The big central mansion on the cliffside looks very cool. It's also very destructible. To set off the destruction on this map, you'll need to make your way to the pool level of this mansion, and you'll see 3 columns. These columns can be easily destroyed with a grenade launcher, C4, or other explosive devices. 2 shots each from a grenade launcher should take out the column, and you only need to take out 2 of the 3 total columns to bring down the front end of this mansion. After the smoke clears, you'll see a lot of new vantage points have opened up. It's changed the entire way that the central part of the map will fight, and it's also opened up the mansion to some vulnerabilities from the transport helicopter and perhaps some easy getaways if you're playing Blood Money or Heist. Next up, we have Derailed, and this is personally one of my favorite Levolutions. We've got this large train bridge in the center of the map here with 1 explosive car in the center. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward on what you need to do. However, it does take a bit of firepower to actually set off this train car, and you'll need some grenade launchers, some of your primary ammo, some secondary ammo. You can pretty much set it off with anything that shoots. Once destroyed, it creates a little bit of a jump in the center part of the canal here for cars to go off of. It also destroys the bridge essentially, so you can't cross the bridge anymore. It doesn't change up the dynamics of this map too much, but it is certainly an awesome looking Levolution. Next up, we have Everglades, which has 3 oil towers in the very center of the map. Now, at first glance, it might just look like these are stationary objects. However, if you go into the buildings closest to each oil tower, you can actually activate a little button that will activate the drill in these towers. Now, this actually destabilizes the ground after time. You can actually watch the process work, and when it's done, you'll see some fractures on the ground around the drill rig. You'll also see some green gas coming up from the earth at the very base of the tower. Once the tower's in this state, all you have to do is sneeze on it and the whole thing will go down. Shoot the green gas by the base of the tower and it will ignite. Once the tower is down, it will now obstruct vehicle paths in the center of the map. It can also be used to crush vehicles zooming by, and it'll create a black oily lake. This process can be replicated for the 2 remaining towers as well, so you really have kind of 3 separate Levolution events on this map. Moving on to Grow House. There's a large train yard behind the Grow House itself with a explosive tanker on there, very similar to the one that we saw on Derailed. Basically, shooting this one enough will eventually set it off. Now, aside from looking awesome while it's exploding, it also creates a tunnel in the back of the grow house, giving you another way to infiltrate that grow house and try and outflank your opponents. Now, although they're not quite as large of a spectacle, the grow house itself also has a lot of destructible walls on the inside. You'll see them marked with red explosive containers. You can basically punch a lot of alternate ways into the grow house. So it might seem like it's a pretty well fortified room, but it actually has a lot of defensive weaknesses. In addition to that, there's the actual pop farm, which can be set on fire by shooting the explosive canisters in the middle of it. The pop farm will go up, it'll create sort of a visual obstruction, and it'll also set off the sprinkler system. This certainly looks awesome in the middle of a firefight, and it can definitely be used to flush somebody out of a good hiding spot in the middle of the farm. Next up we have the block, which has a fairly large apartment complex in the center. This apartment complex can be torn completely to the ground. And there's a couple different ways to do this. The apartment is broken up into quadrants. Each quadrant can collapse on its own. A fun way to do it is by finding a stove and detonating that stove in the apartment complex. However, you have to find the right stove and it will actually explode much larger, sending out fire everywhere. Eventually the fire will spread, consuming the entire apartment building, slowly taking out wall after wall until the whole thing comes down.
All officers, be aware. Part of the structure has collapsed.
Now, of course, these buildings can also be brought down with conventional explosives. Rocket launchers, grenades themselves will take out the walls to this building, and should you take out enough walls, it will collapse on its own, with or without fire. Once destroyed, these apartment buildings actually change up the central dynamic on this map quite a bit, and it can be really advantageous to take out certain of these buildings depending on which side of the map you spawn on. And don't forget that a lot of the other objects in this level are completely destructible as well, so have fun just tearing your way through this map with explosives. Next up we have Riptide, which has a very large central mansion. Now, although you can't destroy this entire mansion, just about everything inside of it will be destroyed. And I have to say, firefights inside of this building look really awesome because whenever you miss your opponent, you pretty much destroy something else in the map. Now, you can destroy the doors in this mansion as well, but it doesn't appear that you can do too much damage to the wall work in here. And that's kind of more common, I think, with the larger maps in Battlefield Hardline. And although it's not quite as flashy as some of the larger Levolution events, I have to say there is something oddly satisfying about going through a giant mansion and just destroying tons of priceless pieces of artwork. And alright, maybe all the artwork isn't exactly priceless, but it's still fun nonetheless. Now, similar to Battlefield 4, some of the maps didn't have Levolution events, but they had weather changing events, and Riptide has a weather changing event. The water will be calm at first, but as the storm picks up, it becomes much more choppy, and there's a lot of waves everywhere, and the palm trees start blowing like crazy in the wind, and everything gets a lot darker. Now, moving on to the last three maps, we have Downtown, and if you've played Hardline Beta at all, you're probably pretty familiar with this Levolution event. It's the tall construction crane towards the center of the map. If you take out the supporting wires, it will come down. You can actually cut the wires with a helicopter if you desire, and basically you only need to take out 3 of the 4 support wires and the crane will collapse. Once down, the crane blocks off a bunch of vehicle pathways so they can't zip around quite as quickly, and it creates some new bridges for infantry to try and infiltrate some of the adjacent buildings. Next up we have Bank Job, one of my personal favorite maps from the Battlefield Hardline Beta. One of the easiest things to do here is to take down the large chandeliers in the middle of the bank. These can actually be used to crush infantry, although it's more for novelty effect, as it's probably a lot easier just to shoot at the infantry. When you get up on top of the bank roof in heist game mode, you can actually set a charge here, which will eventually detonate, sinking the air conditioning unit through the rooftop and creating another access point to the bank vault. Anyone underneath the air conditioning unit will be instantly killed. Once inside the vault, there's an additional spot to put explosive charges. You can actually put these charges on the outside wall of the vault as well, and this will create another hole on the wall, creating an additional access point. Now, I believe a lot of these areas are already destroyed. If you're playing in Team Deathmatch or Conquest, it seems like a lot of this destruction is tied directly into the heist game mode. Lastly, we have Dust Bowl, which is appropriately named. As you'll see to the left, we have a large storm rolling in. Now, it's not clear to me how long it takes for this storm to roll in, but it usually comes towards the end of the round. Once it does actually roll in, your visibility gets reduced significantly. This is intended to take the power away from air vehicles like transport helicopters and scout helicopters and put it more into a close combat format. Since this map is already open to begin with, taking things from long range to short range almost instantaneously is kind of an interesting change up in the way that combat flows. Anyway, that wraps it up for the Levolution events in Battlefield Hardline. I hope you guys have fun triggering these events in game, and as always, I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.